So obviously we're not in Kona anymore. We're actually well past Kona, a little bit late for the recap video, but like I said in the preview or in the previous video, I think it's important to not just do videos when things go perfect, to keep it real, keep it authentic. And all in all, like, I left Kona for the first time since I've been there as a pro, feeling okay about the day. I haven't had my day on the Big Island. I still don't think that's the best performance that I am capable of, but I took away a lot of positives from the day, and kind of the overall thoughts leaving that is, yes, like, I can still be successful there. After the last couple of years, there was a lot of doubt, a lot of things that I had to work through to figure out, if making that Kona push was the thing that makes the most sense for me in my career, if keeping that as the number one priority made sense. And I think getting, the result that I did with the output that I had, I think it still makes sense to me to keep that as the number one goal. Yeah, I mean, obviously I didn't go there for 15th, but the way the day started, it could have been a lot worse. So I guess diving right into the race, I talked about this a little bit in the first video, or the pre-race video, but I made some changes into the taper. Going to the US Open showed me that I needed to make an adjustment in order to perform in the heat. And so I did on the Wednesday before, so 3 days before the race, I did a pretty significant workout, and much more than I've ever done in the past. So basically, the way I feel about it is the taper really started on Thursday. So I did like a 2.5 day taper leading into this, and overall, I think it was the right call. In Dallas, my heart rate was sky high the entire time. It did that, the day before the race. Here in Kona, it was right where I wanted it to be. I'll take where it was 8 days a week. But the downside to that was carrying a little bit more fatigue. I was going to be up against the wall a little bit at the start. I needed to warm up harder and try to just get the body flowing a little bit more. When you're tired, you need more of a warm up. And so I thought I had adjusted enough. I did a little bit more running warm up than I normally would. I got in the water. I was one of the first guys in the water as soon as they let us in. Thought I had done enough. But the way it shook out is the first 500 meters, I didn't get off the line as quick as I have. And, I'm not, still looking back, I'm not sure if that was kind of a ghost of the past. Like in 2015, I was sitting, second or third at the 200 meter mark and came out of the water at the end because I went completely lactic. So I was trying to keep the motions under control and not go off too hard, too fast. So that could have been part of it, or it could have been I just wasn't quite as warmed up as I needed to be. Either way, I was fairly far back, but it was still in the second group, and about 1,000 meters in, a break happened, 2 people in front of me, which again is the risk that you have when you're sitting in the back of a group, whether it's in the swim or on the bike. And so I noticed it happened a little bit late, and went to the front of the group and swam basically as hard as I could for the next 1,000 meters to get to the turn. And I brought it back a little bit, but I just couldn't finish the job in closing that gap. And so that basically put me completely lactate halfway into the swim. So I went to the back of that group again and recovered a little bit. And in that time, the gap opened up from what was about 10 to 15 seconds to well over almost 2 buoys. And once I had caught back up, I kind of went into, we were swimming what I felt was way too slow. And so I went back to the front of that third group now and swam hard the rest of the way in and was able to cut that gap down to 40 seconds, which, on paper, that sounds like nothing, right? Making up a 40-second gap coming out of T2 seems like it should be, something that's easy to do. But when you've got that many guys riding together, basically you've got to make up 40 seconds on the fastest person in that group because the group's going to go together. And the unfortunate part about where I came out of the water was, I came out with Joe Skipper, Lionel Sanders, Sebi, and Cam Worf. And, I've worked hard on my biking, but I'm not going to ride with those guys during the first 20, 30 minutes of the race when, they're basically hammering it to try to get to that front group. That's not a smart move for me. And a couple of guys did go with them. And, they both blew up, halfway through the bike. And so it was the right call for me to just, at that point, say, yeah, okay, it's going to be a long, lonely day, and just stick to my race plan. But it was tough, watching, I could see the group and just watching them ride away. And, I'm not going to lie, there was a lot of moments that it's like, okay, here we go again, another terrible day on the Big Island. Like, I had to fight off a lot of those, kind of mental gremlins that tried to work their way in. Usually they happen later in the race, but this one they were pretty early. But I was feeling good on the bike and the power was right where it needed to be. I just was sitting really far back in the field. And so I just had to trust the process and trust the plan. And, at the start of the climb to Hawi, I was in 50th place, which is not where I envisioned being. But I was feeling good and, the power was there. So it was just, stay on it. And then I got to the top of Hawi and I saw the gaps and I'm like, okay, yeah, I'm far back, but these gaps are manageable. And, I can still, find a way to, have a chance or, be in the mix at some point. And, starting the down on Hawi, I started picking people off one by one as they just kind of got, were overriding to hang in the groups. And I think I brought 15 people back by the time I got off the bike, maybe even more. I think I got off the bike in 29th place, which is, again, well back from where I wanted to be. But the groups were pretty tightly packed together. And so, to have the ride that I did completely by myself with no help from, the legal drafting or not legal drafting, depending on how cynical you want to be, plus all the benefits from the media motos and the draft busters and everything like that, that do definitely have an effect on the race when those packs get big. I can be happy about that. I had probably the second best power output that I've ever had in a full, which for those conditions, definitely is a positive as well. And yeah, so when I came in, I saw a group, a pretty big group leaving transition when I was coming in. So they were getting onto the run as I was finishing. So, I knew there was a big group about 2.5 minutes in front of me. And then I got onto the run and found that I think I was 8 minutes from a paycheck, 15th. And so I'm like, okay, I need to make a decision right now. Do I want to run for a paycheck or do I want to run for a bowl? Like, winning the race at that point was way out of the question. But if I would have put together a great race, did I think that I could get a bowl? And that's what I made the decision to do. I wanted a top 10. I thought that would be a good step forward. I was 12th at St. George, and so I was like, okay, that's the plan. I'm going to go out very aggressively, but I feel good, but I'm going to go out very aggressively to give myself a chance at the top 10. Obviously, I knew there was risk with that, but that's what I wanted. And I was willing to accept blowing up if I was able to try to, I couldn't accept going home and feeling like I left a lot on the table. And so I went out with, at a pace to run about a 2:37, which is kind of what I was guessing I would have needed to have a chance at the top 10. And felt great for the early miles. Obviously, the crowd support definitely helps. And, then you get to the Queen K and stuff gets real when you're by yourself. And that's kind of where you find out what you're made of. And I got to the top of the energy lab and I was feeling okay. I think I was in 16th or 17th at that time. So I was pretty confident that I was going to secure a payday. And so I kept trying to run hard. But yeah, I got to the bottom down the hill, and that's when the races kind of made her broken. And I definitely started feeling the effects of a long day down there. Unfortunately, I had moved into 15th coming out of the energy lab, and I could see 12th about 40 seconds up the road. And I tried to pick it up to move into that position. At that point, top 10 was probably not going to happen. And so, I was like, okay, 12th is where I'm going to go for. Picked it up, moved into 14th very briefly. And then unfortunately, as soon as I tried to pick up the pace and open up the stride a little bit more, both hamstrings cramped up. And, so that was basically a sufferfest for the last 5 miles back in, and, ended up getting repassed, which is never fun. But, so ended up 15th. Again, not what I set out to do, but given how the race unfolded, it was probably the best conditions we'd ever had. Typically coming out of the energy lab, it's absolute carnage. But this year, due to the conditions, people weren't walking. They were able to keep running on. There was a number of guys who went out with a very aggressive race plan and got away with it because the conditions were probably the most favorable that we've ever had on the Big Island, at least in my recent, that I've been racing there. So, that's, the kind of the way the day shook out. I went out a little bit more conservatively on the bike, just because of, how the first 500 meters went in the swim. And, on a really hot day, that would have paid off a little bit more. But that's not what the conditions that we got. So that's just kind of how it goes sometimes. But overall, I left that race feeling good about a lot of things. So what's next? 70.3 Worlds is a race that I've only done once in my career. It's not one that I would probably spend the kind of money to travel to at this point that I did for Kona, or but since it's drivable for me, it just makes sense to go there. It's kind of a low risk world championships. Do I think that I can go and put together a solid performance? Absolutely. Am I going there anticipating to win and I'll be absolutely mad if I don't? No, that's not where I'm at with things this year. I was heavily invested into Kona. I haven't done a lot of the 70.3 type efforts since my first build of the year. Way back in May and June was kind of the last time I was focusing on that. But my body has come around okay, and I'm looking forward to just going out and seeing what happens. I'm really looking forward to just going out and having a lot of fun on a start line and being in a world championship field, and just seeing how things shake out. We also, there's a lot of the people from the team there that I coach and that are coached by my assistant coaches. And so it's going to be a lot of fun to just see that many people on a course or a big field, and seeing a lot of the familiar faces out there is a lot of fun as well. After that, I do plan on doing a November Ironman. I've had a very busy season of racing, and I've thought a lot about this. My body is holding up well. I do feel like the way that the racing has shaken out this year, I need a long block of training to try to bridge that gap. I think, the very top people in the fields are at the World Championships have kind of set a new standard this year. And there's some things that I need to do to try to be competitive on that standard if winning Kona is going to remain my priority. So the goal is to get a Kona slot in November and then basically not race until later in the season is my current goal. If I can get the Kona slot, I can delay the start of the season. Plus, everything sounds like the PTO is going to have a longer distance race next year, and getting the Kona slot early makes that a little bit easier to manage and fit that into the schedule. So that being said, that's the current plan. 70.3 Worlds, then race in November. I'm not exactly sure where yet. I have a feeling I know where I'll end up, but I'm kind of holding on to seeing how I pull up and whether I need an extra week in after St. George or not. But I think if all goes as planned, I'll probably race Arizona rather than Israel. And then I'll end the season having a blast in Daytona, and then I hope to be able to have a nice off season and go on a no bike vacation, which doesn't happen very often, and then come back and really have a long training block where I try to do what I need to do to bridge that gap. So as always, I appreciate you all tuning in. It's been an interesting experience. When I started this career, I never thought that chronicling the day-to-day would be something that I've done. I hope you all enjoy it, and if you do, make sure you hit the like button and click the subscribe on the way out so you can keep following this journey along as it progresses.